With the second pick in the 2022 MLB Draft, the Arizona Diamondbacks select Druw Jones, an outfielder from Wesleyan High School in Norcross, Georgia.
Druw Jones, obviously, first thing that comes in mind, yes, he's Andrew Jones' son. Actually has more, in my opinion, a higher ceiling than his dad has.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. He's a much better athlete than Andrew, naturally. And it looks like he works harder at it because he's not like, he's got a different body type than his dad, which found surprising.
Yeah, his body type reminds me of a current Braves superstar outfielder, Ronald Acuna Jr. Although I think he's a little bit taller.
Yeah, he's a little taller than I expected, and I think he might still grow a little bit more. I think it's one of my one concern with him is he may end up sliding over in the defensive spectrum, but his hit tool is and power is very much legit, and his defense is impeccable. He's a great athlete. He's a better athlete than Andrew, absolutely.
Well, he's got all the tools. He's going to stick in center field if he wants to.
Yeah,
the only reason why he could fall to number 2 is if Baltimore is I don't know who Jones's agent is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Scott Forrest, but I would expect them to take him. It'd be crazy not to, unless you're really high on one of the other players, like much more than Jones for some reason. I don't see a reason to draft anyone else if I'm Baltimore.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're Baltimore and you pass up on Jones and he ends up becoming a star player for the Diamondbacks, that's gonna sting for 10 years.
I think there's a good chance of that happening. I think that regardless of what Baltimore does, is that they're going to end up wishing they had drafted a different player. I think no matter what, they're not going to be happy with who they drafted 10 years from now.
Even if they took Druw Jones?
I think they take Lee or they take Jones.
Yeah.
I honestly would not be surprised at all if they took Lee. Lee is going to fit their timeline very well. And he's got enough versatility defensively. He can play second, short, third, left field. You know, he's got it. They'll find a place to put him. So I also don't know that he 1-1 is going to get paid regardless. But we all know that Baltimore also, unless they're taking a once in a lifetime guy like Adley Rushman, they're not against trying to save a few dollars to use them later in the draft. And comparing Brooks Lee to Druw Jones at 1-1, Druw Jones is going to get paid more.
Yeah, I was going to say Drew's going to command full slot at first overall. I think, regardless if he goes 1 or 2.
Yeah, he absolutely. I think he will get full slot. I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't see him dropping past us at 2. There is a good chance. Like James is right. It's not a certain thing that they're going to take him. So
I'll just say
I love him.
I'll just say this: if he falls past Arizona 2, there's a good chance he doesn't sign at all.
Yeah, no, he will sign on. He won't. He absolutely. He'll commit to Vanderbilt.
He'll just go to Vanderbilt and come back in 2 years.
Yeah.
Be 1-1.
He'll be the number 1 pick then if he's not this year.
Well, we know the D-backs won't be taking one under the current CBA because they won't have. If they suck for 2 more years, they won't be in the lottery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Druw Jones goes number 1. Probably sets a signing bonus record, so that beats Torkelson's record if he goes 1-1 by like $1,000 or something. Signs for maybe 8.5. Druw Jones, who is considered the consensus top overall prospect in this draft. Outfielder, son of Andrew Jones, 10-time Gold Glove winner, 5-time All-Star for the Atlanta Braves. So anyway, gentlemen, do you think Jones goes first overall in this draft?
I think he probably does. Um, there are plenty of arguments to be made that Elias will try to cut a deal, which would be great for Arizona. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to take the best player available in this one because he is a he's a borderline talent in the going into that true top tier of talents, and he's the kind of guy that if he hits, he's going to be a franchise centerpiece for years to come. I wouldn't say he's a generational talent, but he's starting to push against that, and it's going to be rough to pass on him regardless of what their strategy is. He's not going to command the full 1-1 slot bonus, so they're still going to have some savings even if they take him.
Anything, Wes?
I mean, I agree. I agree with James here. Like, I mean, it's very likely that they'll take Druw Jones. I mean, they've been drafting more on a need basis, but at this point, it would be really dumb for them to not draft Jones. And I don't think that they'll necessarily save that much. But on the other hand, it's the Orioles. Really, no one has an idea of who they're going to draft other than maybe 4 people. And I don't even know if they know who they're going to draft. So it would be great I'm happy either way if we get Jones or not.
From what I heard, the Baltimore decision making, it's come down to like a really small inner circle. I think the number of people that make that decision you can count on one hand, kind of thing. That's what I remember seeing.
I've heard it's literally 4 people.
I thought it was 3.
What I've heard is it's like 3 or 4 people. Yeah.
Basically, the GM, the assistants, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, if Jones doesn't go 1 to Baltimore, Arizona's swooping in.
Yeah, I have not seen anyone having the Diamondbacks take someone other than Jones if he's still on the board.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Yeah, because
I think it's a pretty much unanimous consensus that if Baltimore passes on Jones, there's no way he gets past Arizona. Period.
Yeah, that's pretty much the consensus. If he's available, they'll take Jones.
So here's a hypothetical question. If the D-backs take Jones, which outfield spot do you think he ends up manning?
Center field.
I think he's going to end up in like right or left. I don't see him long term as a center fielder just because of who his dad is. I think it would be just a wiser decision to throw him in an easier position so he ages better.
I think he'll end up in right field, because I think between him, Thomas, and Carroll, he is the best player for right field in terms of physical talent, in my opinion. Even though Carroll can
has the arm for it, by the time he arrives, I expect at least one of Thomas and Carroll will no longer be with the team. So, if not both, and we're talking 4 years removed from now.
Yeah, that's a good timeline.
Thomas is going to already be getting, assuming he sticks, he's going to be getting expensive, and we know how much, Arizona likes to spend. So unless they lock him up to one of those super friendly, team friendly contracts early in his career, like within the next season or 2, I fully expect that by the time Druw Jones is arriving, the Arizona outfield is going to look so different that it doesn't really matter. He's going to fit in the outfield. He can play any of the 3 positions. I think because of his superior fielding ability, he'll be stuck in center field. But if they still do happen to have Corbin Carroll and Alek Thomas both, then yeah, you put him in right field where he can show off that arm.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's in a pretty similar situation to what Atlanta has with Ronald Acuna Jr. Can play center field, but not necessarily the best option to play center field given the other players on the roster kind of situation. Assuming that the Diamondbacks are somehow able to compete in 2027. Which is,
I think the Diamondbacks are much more likely to be like an above 500 team sooner than you think.
Yeah, I can see it as soon as 24.
Yeah,
sure.
I could see them being certainly 2024, maybe even next year, depending on like how proactive Hazen is about roster construction. But that's very unlikely at this point, as anyone who's been paying attention can tell.
So we'll pivot on to which player excites you the most if he were available at 2. And I'll let Spencer go first.
Oh boy. I love Jones. I think Jones would excite me the most just because the pedigree, like just his dad was an amazing player and I'd like to add that to the system. But Johnson's a very close second.
Of Spencer, like I'm actually much more excited about Tamar Johnson and his bat. His comps are like off, like just amazing. They're off the charts. If they're talking about like Tony Gwynn or even like comparable to like Juan Soto's, which is like, it makes me very excited for him as like a hitter. And he's got fantastic makeup. Like he's very involved in the game. He wants to participate. He wants to help his teammates. He wants to coach. The guy seems like he'd be a great fit in the clubhouse. Druw Jones, second. I mean, I'm excited about him, but Tamar Johnson's makeup and just the guy hit tool and watching him hit, I've grown more excited the more I've like learned about him as a player.
Well, I'm most hoping that they do get Druw Jones at number 2. I think the upside is close to Elijah Green type upside, and I think he's got a slightly better, not like exceptionally better, but a slightly better chance of getting close to his ceiling than Green does. I love the bat. I love the athleticism. I love that he is already considered by many to be near MLB ready defensively, so he can focus exclusively on learning to hit big league pitching, or professional pitching at least.
Okay, Manfred's the podium. Drum roll, please.
It's Druw Jones.
So, the obvious question: where do you put him on the farm system? Near top, I would assume top 3. Number 2.
I put him number 2.
I would too. I would put him ahead of Lawler.
I absolutely would put him ahead of Lawler because I think he's already ready to play in Visalia.